and flowers, trees, and life of life connected associated with it. Um, are you ready to go? Or you're still putting
Yep.
up your
Uh,
slideshow? Just to give you a
okay.
quick introduction, she is a full-time astrologer and tarot card reader. She actually does readings at the Watkins Bookshop in the West End of London. So if any of you wanting a reading, don't be shy. Go and see her. She studied at the CPA Center of Psychological Astrology with Liz Green, and has a diploma in psychological astrology. She's also a student of Pandit Sanjay Rath as well, so she's well adept in Parashara and Gemini astrology. She's our former vice president of the Astrological Lodge, and she continues to participate in the Astrological Lodge activities. So without further doubt, if we can hand over to Sonal, it's all yours.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much, Israel. Clearly, I think trees is not everybody's cup of tea. So, but last time I think we did till Pushya, right? I think till Punarvasu, we do?
I think we went up to, yes.
Yeah.
We, we didn't. I'm not sure if we did Pusha. I think up to Punavasu.
Okay, so we'll do as much as we can. I doubt if we'll be able to complete all the 27, but we can always, I can rearrange for another time. So, um, but Pushya is a beautiful constellation. Its deity is Brihaspati, and it's a nourishing flower. It's often depicted by like a lotus flower, especially a white lotus. And that is another thing. Any of the iconology you can use for Pushya. So if you have a rising sign in Pushya or sun in Pushya, even, and definitely if you have moon in Pushya, then for sure you can use this symbolism, blue lotus or white lotus. And the deity for the, and it falls entirely in the sign of Cancer, 3 degrees to 16 degrees in the constellation of Cancri or Aslesha Australis. That's the fixed star, the Latin names for it. And its deity is Brihaspati. Now, the thing with Brihaspati is he is the teacher of the devas, the divine beings, the gods, and he sort of translates into Guru or Jupiter in our charts. That is the significance of Brihaspati. And the Shakti for Pushya is a power to create spiritual energy and worship and sacrificial worship. All of that is, and rituals and practices all come under Pushya. And it's often symbolized by the udder of a cow. So that does implying that it's often indicates that something like it is very deeply nourishing. Anything that kind of nourishes, it is to do with Pushya. And the mantra for that is, of course, because Brihaspati, because all um, the mantra chants, especially if you have like moon or sun in Pushya, then it is always nice to chant this Hom Brihaspataye Namaha. And Brihaspati is definitely the sort of the god of the gods, and he is a teacher, like an official teacher of the divine beings of the gods. And it often refers to all the 18 names of Brihaspati or Guru or Jupiter. And according to the Brihaspati Kavach mantra from Brahma Mala Tantra, so often, like I said, Brihaspati is a very, very revered deity. And in fact, so much so that lot of the Rig Vedic mantras, which is sort of one of the oldest texts, begin with Brihaspati. And I would certainly recommend one fantastic mantra which has been given by Vishwamitra Rishi. and it is the Sanskrit chanda or the meter is Gayatri, and it is the Devta, of course, is Brihaspati. And Vrishabha Charshani Nam Vishwarupam Dabhyam Brihaspatim Varenyam. So this is the mantra which is extremely positive for everyone, especially if you are into learning all kinds of astrologies and teaching anything occult. All this will be very, very beneficial with this mantra. Vrishabha Charshani Nam Vishwarupam Dabhyam Brihaspatim Varenyam. And the translation is, we sing the praise of Brihaspati, the preceptor of the gods, for the joy of learning and for success in all the good actions. He is the most respectable and the greatest. His wishes are inviolable, and we gain spiritual strength by following his footsteps. So, this is a very, very powerful deity for Pushya. And uh, Jupiter exalts in this nakshatra, in the sign of Cancer. So we instantly, hence, it becomes extremely revered nakshatra. Now, moving forward, the tree that is associated, the sacred tree associated with it is Ficus religiosa. And there is also another one, Ficus bengalensis. And it is said in the Vishnu Puran. Vishnu Puran is one of the great Puranas, which are one of the key Puranas given by Lord Vishnu. And there is a lot of remedies in a lot of the Puranas, when to fast, lifestyle stuff to be had. A lot of the mythical stories to do with devatas is all given in the various Puranas, and each of the Puranas get associated with all the planets. So if you have, let's say, a problematic Jupiter, let's say the Jupiter is in Marana or some such thing, then often one of these Puranas will certainly help you. Or even if you want to strengthen, your trines, or the angular houses, and if you have like a debilitated planet in the angular houses, then Vishnu Puran, because the Kendras or the angular houses, our overseer of that is Lord Vishnu. Hence, Vishnu Puran will be very, very auspicious to have. You can even download it on Google, and or get a hard copy. That is all fine. But it is definitely worth, because there's a mountain of remedies given in the Puranas. And here it mentions the four sacred mountains: Mandara, Gandha, Mandara, Vipula, and Suparsha. And each one of them stands for a Kadam tree. These are the various sacred trees, out of which People ficus is one of the most auspicious. So there you can see that here there are people sort of performing religious ceremonies. And there is another very powerful remedy of people tree. It is said that if you want to have, like, if there is somebody's done like a black magic on you, or some kind of negative stuff, then you can go around the tree, and that will um, help you to overcome it. And even placing a picture or an image of an old people tree, Ficus religiosa, is a very, very powerful remedy. Now, there are references in the great Bhagavad Gita as well, by Lord Krishna. Of all the trees, I'm the holy fig tree, and amongst the sages and demigods, I'm sage Narad. Of singers of gods, Gandharvas, I'm Chitrarat, and among perfected beings, I'm sage Kapila. So, so again, there are heavy references. It is also called by the name Ashwatha, and this is also another name for people. So again, like I said, this is an extremely sacred tree. Lot of the negative stuff is taken away just by worshipping of the trees, and that is the beauty about the nakshatras. So here again there are these various padas. This is research in progress, so I can't really um, say that it is absolutely kind of true, because I haven't personally sort of figured out which exactly ancient text it is mapped from. But anyway, this is the scientific name for the first pada is the people one, and then there is Anjan tree, and then there is other Burma ironwood. But again, like I said, please feel free or be open with the research. But definitely the people tree is very powerful. It is also called the Bodhi tree and the tree of awakening. And it is a large ancient fig tree in Gaya, India. And it is also said it is where Buddha gained enlightenment. So you can see there's a like a little imagery going on here. Now the Western alternative for because it certainly doesn't grow here in the northern hemisphere. It is the common fig is often you can replace it with a common fig, because this is fairly I'm not saying impossible, but fairly easy to grow. It is the only fig that grows preferably outside a wall in sheltered place, but is quite frosty, hardy, can be grown in most parts of Britain, except mountainous regions. Though I have to say, there are not many mountains in Britain, but never mind. Probably hills compared to the Himalayas. But anyway, it is quite common and nourishing fruit that fits Pushya and may need some protection in cold weather. Okay, so now we move to the Aslesha, which is the ninth one, which is 16 degrees to spans from 16 degrees to 30 degrees of the sign Cancer, and um, it has six stars representing the serpent, and it's in the constellation of Hydra, Cancer E Hydra. Now, it's interesting that um, all of these allude to Aslesha, because the whole ethos of Aslesha is about the serpents, the sarpas. It is the birthplace of Rahu and Ketu, and definitely Rahu. It is extremely powerful. The sarpas. It is, and it is also the deity. And the sarpas or the coiled serpents. They are no ordinary serpents. They span, like even the nagas fall into that category, and the sarpas are like vicious snakes, and they have association with the kundalini energy, as we will see a little further on. And the mantra for it is Hom Sarpebhyo Namaha, and the sounds are K and G. So often the come, if you add to the sounds, and if you have moon in Aslesha. Now the moon in Aslesha is a very difficult combination. It's very, very challenging, only because the moon in Aslesha is sort of quite afflicted. And I will come to why it is afflicted, because you see, because you can see Lord Krishna fighting the serpents. The thing with serpents is it is a heavily it is laden with poison, and therefore it is often said that no task should be started when the moon is transiting Aslesha Nakshatra. And ironically enough, today we are in Aslesha Nakshatra. So it's so often nobody begins anything in in this nakshatra. No one wants to even sort of do anything. The idea is there is so much poison inherent in this constellation that it is better to just let it lie low and just move on with it. And of course the result of it is destruction of the victim, because there is always so much agitation and poison and angst with inherent in this star. So here we have, I don't know if you can see the images. They are like these stone murtis, statues of loads and loads of sarpas, or the snake energies or snakes here. And they are worshipped in India. A few years ago, there was a controversy of by J.K. Rowling, where she tweeted that, oh, the Nagas, or something to do with Nagas, that they have origins in Indonesia, and they are like the snake, this serpents of great sort of import from Indonesia. And I think a lot of the Indians it went into uproar, because the serpents have a huge, and the nagas, which are another name for the sarpas, have huge significance in the Indian context, in the Indian Vedic context. These, even in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is one of the greatest of sacred texts, it mentions a story of a powerful episode of the Naga called Kaliya. Kalia is like this dark, multifold serpent with many, many heads, And Kalia made his home in Vrindavan, which is where Krishna was, that was his place, Um, and um, and because he was fearing Garuda. Now, the thing about the sarpas and the nagas, which are essentially quite close, but there is a difference. The serpents are much more sort of poisonous. I mean, both are poisonous, and they are fierce in their energies and destruction of the enemy, but the sarpas are extremely lethal. And the nagas at least can be appeased. So there's a little bit of a difference between them. And they fear Kalia. Sorry, they fear Garuda. Garuda is like a celestial bird, and it is the vehicle for Lord Vishnu. And so Kalia and Krishna knew that this is one way of getting rid of Kalia, because the thing was, wherever Kalia, the Sarpa, would reside, and he had made his home in Vrindavan, the everything became toxic, everything became blue, everything was like poison, and nothing would ever grow there. And hence the lake dried up, killing all the animals and flora and fauna nearby. And hence Krishna had to get rid of Kaliya. And this was one of the ways to do it. And so he fought. You can see here, this is a very, very classic iconography of Krishna fighting the snakes by Ravi Raj Varma, by one of the greatest artists from southern India. And so you can see that he's fighting the snakes. And the Garuda is the only bird, the only celestial bird that can actually, it's like a great huge eagle that can actually kill off all the serpents and the nagas. Hence, any problems with Rahu or Ketu in your chart, anything, and we all have an Aslesha somewhere lying, because we all have a house which has 16 degrees to 30 degrees of Cancer somewhere along in one of those 12 houses. And so if you have anything, even a planet or in that house will carry a lot of poison, lot of toxicity. And the only way to fight it is through the Garud mantras, or the Garud, invoking the Garuda, the celestial bird, because only they can fight it off. And of course, it is Lord Krishna as well, that can fight off. So, and including the Rahu and Ketu, because don't forget, in the Vedic episode, the Rahu and Ketu myth is connected very deeply to the serpents, because after all, it was Rahu and Ketu, before they separated, they were actually a single massive snake. Here, I have to bring in the myth of the Samudra Manthan, the churning of the ocean milk for the nectar of immortality. And as you can see, what did they use? This is the Mount Mandara, the Mount Meru, and all of these goodies are coming out. The Kamdhenu, the wish fulfilling cow, the great elephants, and all the goodies and nectar came. But before all this came, you can see the devas on one side and the asuras or the demons on the other side, and they used the celestial snake, you know, as you can see, to churn the ocean. They use Swarn Bhanu to churn, the various Puranas have different opinions on what the this particular snake was, but rest assured, they used this, and ultimately the serpent Swarbhanu got very greedy. It also wanted some of the nectar of immortality. So it started to, when after the poison, all the goodies started to come out. And the last thing that was to come out was uh, the nectar of immortality. And so he wanted a bite of that, because obviously he wanted to be powerful and immortal. And so he quaffed a little bit of that until the sun and the moon, you can see here the moon and the sun is also somewhere along, complained to Lord Vishnu, who was overseer of this entire production. And so um, Lord Vishnu, with his discus, cut the snake into two, and that's how we got the Rahu and Ketu. So, in Aslesha, this myth is extremely alive. That poison that came out of the churning, is, and that's why Lord Shiva always has the snake's coil around his neck. Because when this manthan was going on, this churning was going on, Lord Shiva actually drank some of the deep toxic poisons that came out, because only he had the ability to take in all that poison. And as a result of that, he turned blue temporarily, as you can see in this image. And it is, this image is a very common form of, as depicted for Lord Shiva, and it's, he's called the Neelkant. Neelkant is, his throat became blue, and its Neel is blue in Sanskrit, and Kant his throat. And often he is depicted this way, because that is that he's able to have the ability to absorb all the negative, toxic, poisonous energies. And that is what the Rahu and Ketu give us. They kind of literally poison whichever house they are in, because bear in mind, it's always an axis. And often we do great injustice to not have, as Mariella was saying earlier, that to just depict Rahu, that is a north node of the moon, and never the south node. I think it's doing a lot of injustice, because we literally have to work with this energy of Rahu and Ketu. And this is a very potent energy. This is the reason why we are born, and why we will be born again and again until we get out of this moksha and strive towards moksha. Only then the liberation will come, once we sort of give up and move towards absolute sort of drive towards moksha, which is nothing but Ketu energy, and Ketu, which is a higher form of Ketu. So here, and that is the reason Lord Shiva, because he's able to manage all of these energies, he wears the snake, the Vasuki, the great celestial Vasuki, which is a great Naga, in his neck. And the each of these Nagas or serpents are mapped. Again, there is from various parts of the country, these are various iconologies. You can even see Nag Devi here, as you can see, in the she's sitting on like a pit of snakes. I mean, that is how fierce an energy it is to fight the snakes. So, like I said, wherever Rahu and Ketu is in your chart, and if it is conjoining any of the benefics or malefics, you will need that energy for sure. And here it is, one of the great, she, again, another Devi who is shown with, she's Ghatagri, I can't even pronounce it. But she is from Karnataka, and this particular imagery, and there is a great story and belief about her. There are millions flock to her temple, and it is said that a lot of your problems of Rahu and Ketu do go away if you visit that temple, because that temple somehow has got some strange mystical tantric powers. Like, it's like phenomenal. I do know a lot of people who have gone there and managed to kind of get rid of a lot of their problems. So here you can see that she's a woman of a deity of great who can battle all the snakes. Now, Natya Shastra, there is mentions of snakes galore in the entire pantheon of the Vedic iconology everywhere. In Natya Shastra, chapter 2, Natya Shastra is a knowledge of performance and performances, and this is very sacred too. And the whole text also begins with puja to the gods and the stage, as in, like, because it's to do with performances, we are talking of when you're setting up the stage and doing all sorts of sort of creating the props and all of that. There are these pujas, or we are meant to sort of like bow down to the gods. And hence, even there we not just invoke Brahma, who sprung from lotus, Brihaspati, as we just saw in earlier in Pushya, the preceptor of the gods, Vishnu, Guha, Kartikeya, Saraswati, Lakshmi, Siddhi, Meda, Smriti, Mati, Chandra, which is moon, Surya, which is sun, the winds, which we will see later in Swati, the guardians of all directions, Ashwins, Mitra, Agni, and all the gods such as Rudra and the Varnas, Yama, Niyati, scepter of Yama, weapons of Vishnu, and the lord of the Nagas, the lord of the birds, which is Garuda, who are the only one. Garuda is the only one who can fight the Nagas. Thunderbolt, lightning, seas, essentially. So everything, the sun, moon, wind, heavens, all of them are constellated. But Nagas have a very special place. So you can well imagine how vital it is to sort of constellate this energy and bow down and surrender to it, so that it leaves you alone. The poison, you're not churned by the poison and completely inactivated by it, because that's what Rahu and Ketu do. Rahu does it through shocks within the system, and Ketu does it through like lightning bolt, like a laser beam. It will just burn you up. So here again, it continues, the verses continues that the puja needs to be done on stage under the asterism of Ardra, which is Alpha Orionis, and Maga, which is Regulus. And so it basically gives a lot of rules. Like I said, there is the whole of the Vedic texts are full of, when to do, when to appease, when to get rid of some of the issues that you're having, because there is a certain, and that's where the beauty of nakshatras comes into being. So, again, it carries on forward, but I've just taken an excerpt from it. um, Again, I don't want to go into this. It again talks about, even for the installing of the gods on stage, it talks about, it goes on about Pishacha and all of these Pitris. Again, they are again the deities to do with the Nagas, very closely linked. Not so much the Pitras, but Pishacha, they are all sort of hang out there in the lower worlds, the seven worlds below us, where each of these are ruled by a particular Naga. In fact, each of the month is also ruled by a particular Naga. And my suggestion is, find out these are the lunar months. This is a little like kind of thing. I was kind of ran out of time, but essentially, the Chaitra month, Vishaka month. So Dhatri is Chaitra, which is when the sun is in Aries, and the Naga associated, the Rishi associated is Pulatsya, and the Rakshas is a demon that is associated with it, and the Nagas that is associated is Vasuki. So if you're born in this lunar month, then Vasuki is your Naga. So if you have planets there, or sun there, or rising sign there, then by all means, it will help to keep an imagery of Vasuki. And don't take it lightly, because this is a very um, vital part of a remedy for Aslesha, because Aslesha is one of the big doshas, as they call it, big afflictions in the chart. If you have planets in Aslesha, it will be extremely challenging. If you have moon in Aslesha, for sure you will need a remedy here. Oh, even though moon in Aslesha is in its own sign in Cancer, bear in mind, because the whole of the Aslesha falls in the constellation of in the Rashi, or the sign of Cancer. But in spite of that, there will be problems if you uh, have moon in Aslesha. There are lots of remedies, but that is beyond the course of this discussion. Right now we are just focusing on a little bit of the import behind the deity of Aslesha. And here the next month is when the sun is in sorry, this is in Pisces to Aries, and this is Aries to um, sun in Taurus. So they are kind of, there's a sort of like a overlap, cusp, because bear in mind these are lunar months. So if anybody wants more, they can either Google it or just drop me a line, and I can give you uh, the details of the exactly when the months are. But bear in mind that we are also talking about the months, and as well as if the moon is in the particular sign, the sign of, let's say, Aries, then it is Kachnira, and Takshaka is when the sun is in Mitra. But even if the moon is in sort of in the Gemini to Cancer, then it is in Takshaka. So again, there are many lists, but bear in mind this is kind of coming from Srimad Bhagavad Puran. So again, the list continues. Kartik month is, I think Kartik month is November. So if you have birth around November and early December, is Ashwatara is the Naga associated with it. So yeah, it goes on and on. But these are very specific Nagas, and they oversee a certain sort of like talas, or the nether regions below the earth, and they have their own mantras, even more their own sounds, which if you activate it will really help you to remedy a lot of problems. Okay, so the association, ironically, with Aslesha, the name for its plant or its tree is Nag Keshar. Now, Nag, again, the word Nag comes in, which is, ironic, because the whole ethos of Aslesha is to do with Nagas and Sarpas. And it is also champa, which is, you can see the flower here, and this is the little seeds here. um, and the botanical name for it is Mesua nagasarium, which is the Indian rose chestnut. And these are some of the synonyms here: Ceylon ironwood, Nak champa, ironwood tree, ironwood, Indian rose chestnut. These are some of the common names: cobra, saffron, ironically, cobra, saffron, So this can be grown in UK, but needs sheltering and protection in winter, as won't take much more than -1 degree. So you can grow it. Again, some of the names are sort of, I'm not sure if cobra saffron, I haven't done much research, but maybe that it is belongs to the same family, like I said, the family is calphil. Phil, I have no idea how to pronounce these names. Sorry. So, but they are there for references. Feel free to Google it. That will help. Uh, Essentially, the point that I'm trying to make is that if you are able to find the equivalent family, even same family, that will help. Even if you can't get hold of the um, actual tree, which may or may not grow here. So this Nakeshar oil is extracted from the seeds of the Nakeshar tree. And East Indian evergreen tree is often planted as an ornament for its fragrant white flowers that yield beautiful perfume. It is a source of hardwood and used for railroad ties. So this is a very, very beautiful oil. Absolutely divine smell for sure. And it is often used for so like cosmetic purposes and things like that, and very hardy. And also it's got some a lot of antiseptic properties, not just for like it smells nice, but it has a very high sort of antioxidant and antiseptic properties, great for skin. So here you have this picture. I think it's like a curly willow, which is like an equivalent of a snake, or snake sort of branches that look like that. Tall tree, easy to grow from young branches. Twisted hazel, have to prune regularly in order to keep twistedness, otherwise reverse to ordinary hazel. Okay, so this is something you can quite easily grow. So if you have moon or sun in Aslesha, or rising sign, feel free. I would really recommend it. You will be surprised what a healing thing it can be. Now we come to Magha, which is in Leo. It's at, and Regulus is here. I mean, this is in the constellation of Regulus, and it is the five stars representing a palanquin, the great one, the Pitris, the deified ancestors, are what the great deity of Magha is. And often the symbolism is the chair, the great sort of royalty, and it's interesting, or the throne, obviously the royal throne. And it symbolizes a long line of departed ancestrals, very royal lineage, so all that comes under the purview of Magha. And now, interestingly enough, that the Pitris are also nothing but, we are all descended from, remember earlier in the first session, I mentioned that we are all descended from Brahma and the Manas Putras of Brahma, that is Brahma's mind born sons. And he created the Prajapati so that he could manufacture all of us. But we also, he created, along with that, he also created the sages, the seven sapta rishis. And so we all the entire mankind is literally maps into the various lineages. So essentially, when we talk about the pitris or the ancestors, we all have some kind of connection to the core ancestry, to the core lineages, to the seven saptarishis, which are nothing but the seven constellations in the sky, near in the sky, in the what do you call, the Milky Way. Remember, we talked about that in the first session. So that is how we bring together the Pitri. So it is not just like, oh, my father's lineage is this and that, but it is ultimately, it's the overseer, it's the entire world. If you take it, and all the sages that we have descended from. So then we feel much more connected to the Pitris. Now, the Pitris are extremely powerful concept in a Vedic thing. There are a lot of Puranas. There is a lot of mention in the Garud Puran about how do you manage death? How do you manage the Pitris? Do you have the blessings of the Pitris or the ancestors? Even in the African tradition, I do know that there are healing ceremonies you study and for years and years, and you get initiated into the some of the healing ceremonies of how do you get rid of or appease the ancestors and the negative karma which is coming from the entire ancestral line, because that negative karma has a bearing on your happiness and well-being this lifetime. You may scoff at the idea, but you know the old adage, um, so what was that? The sins of the forefathers comes to rest upon the children is never true, and it has always been, in terms of the Indian context, has been startingly, kind of they've always known that particular truth. So here it denotes, it occurs, the pitris or pater, in as they call it in Latin, is means the deceased ancestors of a man, but in a special sense it occurs in Hindu mythology. So again, like I said, it is very, very common in India to appease. And how do you appease them? There are one of the key times, and we have even it depends on the movement of the sun, so we even have the times prescribed when you can do this pitri appeasing. And this happens when the sun's sojourn goes from, let's say the sun goes into the sign of Cancer to Capricorn. So it begins its sojourn. It's called the Dakshina Ayana. So it becomes its southward trend. So it goes, and that's when you start to sort of, giving, like leaving out little water and little things like that, and little pujas or little ceremonies you do to appease the ancestors, especially like feeding rice balls and things like that is a very common practice. And especially when the sun is transiting the nakshatra of Magha, that's when we begin, because that's when the sun, this is the sidereal sun in Magha, yeah, in Leo. That's when the sun begins its downward journey. Things are, days are getting short, have got shorter and shorter, and then the nights are getting long. We are moving into the winter, closing onto the winter season, where the sun is going to be losing its light. It's not going to be as strong. So hence the spiritual significance of paying sort of ceremonies in order to appease the ancestors and ancestral lineages. And here in the Puranas, it is below the paradise of Indra, and it is also in the abode of um, the souls of the divine Brahmans. That is, the Brahmans meaning the great celestial priests who perform all the ceremonies. And Pitri Loka, that is the world of the Pitris, is really a very real thing for the Vedic people who follow the Vedic scriptures. Even growing up, anybody who passes away, we have so many ceremonies, and they have to be done absolutely, and everybody does it sort of in a very, it's called the shraddha, and there are these rites have to be performed, and there are even specific places in India. It's called Gaya, and literally in Sanskrit, Gaya means gone. That's really, it literally means that Gaia is gone. And so that particular place, if you go, there are priests constantly doing the ceremonies and rites, and you're meant to offer, like, in progression, as in when they have passed away, like rice balls and water, and there's a whole host of kind of knowledge going on in it, how to do it, when to do it, and all that. It's all there in the scriptures. But this, I know you would well ask, but why bother? Because the ancients very strongly believe that the happiness of our existing happiness rests upon how we treat our dead and how the departed souls. So this is a very important part of Magha. Okay, let the devout performer of an ancestral oblation propitiate Brahma, Indra, Rudra, the Ashwins. Remember, we saw the Ashwins in Ashwini Nakshatra, the Ashwin Kumars, the sun, fire, the Vasus, the winds, the Vishwadevas, the sages, birds, men, animals, reptiles, progenitors, and all existing things, by offering adoration to them monthly on the 15th day of the moon's wane or dark fortnight, or on the 8th day of the same period in certain months, or at particular seasons, as I will explain. So there are chapters and chapters and reams of stuff to do with this. Now, another thing that I have to mention, is the ruler of Magha is Ketu. So Ketu is a very, very strong ruler. So again, with Aslesha, we have the Rahu and Ketu theme playing very strongly. And even in Magha, we have the same theme continuing forward. When a householder holder finds any circumstances has occurred, or a distinguished guest has arrived on which account ancestral ceremonies are appropriate and they should celebrate them, he should offer a voluntary sacrifice upon any atmospheric portent at the equinoctial and solstical periods. Obviously, they are talking of the solstices and equinoxes, at the eclipses of the sun and the moon, on the sun's entrance into zodiacal sign, upon unpropitious aspects of the planets and asterisms, on dreaming unlucky dreams. So the dreams also tell us something very concrete about our subconscious, about what is to come, and on eating the grain of the year's harvest. So you see, there is, in the ancients, prescribed very clearly what was, what needed to be given to how to do it, how to appease it, at what points, whether the equinoxes and different ceremonies to be done. And even under the star of conjunctions, at what point do you do? If there is a new moon, when the star conjunction is in Anuradha Nakshatra, Vishakha, or Swati, and for 12 years when it is in Pushya, Ardra, or Punarvasu. So again, the Pitris derive satisfaction. So obviously, this knowledge has come from Brahma, and this is a very key, sort of knowledge. Now, you may well ask, well, I'm not connected to the Vedic stuff, how does it affect me? And it won't, but it will, because everybody has somebody, we are all coming from a lineage, as we saw earlier. And so there is no harm in doing simple stuff, remedying it through little bit of mantra, or putting out a little water in the evening. So these are the little bits and pieces of remedies that are very, very powerful, and one should never underestimate the power of some of these little small remedial measures. Right. Now, I don't want to go too much into it. Wow, there's loads of it. But again, like I said, you can read about this. I can give you the references for the texts. Garud Puran has a lot of it, as has Srimad Bhagavatam. There's lots of other resources too. Um, let's move to the tree of Magha. It is the great banyan tree. And of course, the banyan tree, as you can see, the roots, its branches, the branches are so thick and huge, and they have this roots growing. So the finally the roots that are growing from the branches come onto the ground, and they themselves form sprout new tree trunks. That's the beauty of the great banyan tree. This is no ordinary tree. This is one of the most sacred trees. It is said the serpents that we saw in Aslesha actually reside in the banyan trees. They kind of coil around these little branches which go deep beneath the ground. And it is also said that the great banyan tree have connection to all the nagas, the great serpents which are living below the surface of the earth, because the roots of it go deep, deep within. And it is absolutely a no-no. The banyan tree is never ever destroyed, ever. It is one of the most revered tree in the country. So, and its botanical name is Ficus bengalensis. Okay, so here's another version of the tree, and this is in Hawaii. So you see, it's kind of not quite the same, but it's sort of like a variation of it. Um, and there are these trees, the old classify among the oldest trees in Calcutta and those regions. There are these great banyan trees that have been around for like many, like hundreds of years, over hundreds of years, and they are so sacred. In fact, there is a particular banyan tree very famous in one of the temples in Bangalore in southern India, and it is so sacred and so powerful is the energy of that tree for meditation and all that, that whatever thoughts you have around that tree, they become little bit of reality. So you have to be very, very careful what you're thinking. Even if a single negative thought comes along around that tree, it kind of manifests. So I do know people who have been there, and it is very uneasy to be near such a powerful tree. Um, anyway, so there we go. And the equivalent or the alternative for the Northern Hemisphere will be, I think this is the elderflower, the Sambucus nigra. So there you go. So this is a beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. You have elderflower cordials and you know a tree growing. Of course, it is nowhere near the size of the great banyan. No way. The great banyan is massive tree. So anyway, we carry on with there you go. There are these little botanical depictions of the great elderflower. This is a beautiful this is again given by my friend Jean Elliott, who's a keen gardener and an astrologer and creator of also the Nakshjatra gardens. There is a legend about elder in relation to a king of Denmark. There is a stone circle in Oxfordshire called Rollright Stones. On Midsummer's Eve, people would gather and cut the flowers from the elder tree. When they did so, the kingstone's head, which I think is near the circle, but not in it, if I remember rightly, would move. I don't know how far this is true. it could it probably it has magical powers. The Danish king had his eyes on the English crown and asked the elder tree which what the outcome of his desire would be. She turned him and his army into stone, hence the roll right stones. Elder was associated with witchcraft. Christians' fear of pagans. This is from an unknown source, but this has been supplied to me by Jean Elliott. Bless her. She's a fantastic gardener. So So this is something, I mean, I personally love elderflower juice cordial. Absolutely amazing. And even the smell of the elderflower can, for some people, it can smell a bit like iffy, but I really love this, the fragrance of it. And I do like the cordial for sure. So it's a quite a delicate, delicate essence. So anyway, so moving on from Magha, we may have time for Purva Falguni. So this is another, uh, the 11th constellation, the former red one. Wow. What does that mean, former red one? It is from 13 degrees to 26 degrees of Leo, Leonis constellation. And the deity is Bhaga. Now, bear in mind, Bhaga is also an Aditya. He is one of the sun gods and from sage Kashyap and goddess Aditi. Remember, we visited Aditi in Punarvasu Nakshatra. And Aditi, she's the god of the Devas, and she's the god of the wind and the moon and the sun and the Adityas. The sun, when he travels in all the 12 zodiac signs, is each of the Adityas or a definite quality of the sun is manifested. And Bhaga is one of them. Bhaga is the Aditya for Capricorn, which is the 10th house in the natural zodiac. And ironically, he rules the god of wealth, especially inherited wealth. So this is interesting because Purva Falguni then is associated with the god of wealth. What is going on? Let's see the symbolism, the legs of a court, the power to procreate. Above the wife, the female partner, the basis below is a husband, male partner, the creation of a living being. And the mantra is Hom Bhagai Nama. And the sound is cheer. So the sound, if you have a moon here, or the sun or the rising sign, then the chum, chum, chum will be a very powerful remedy for you. Let's see. Bhaga is an Aditya sun god from Rishi Kashyap, which I mentioned earlier, and he deals with money, wealth, inheritances. He's one of the 12 Adityas. We already went through that. The aspect he represents is bright light. So Bhaga has a lot to do with resources and wealth. And there's a long story, which I don't want to really go into, but Shiva's father-in-law is Lord Daksha, and Lord Daksha held a ceremony without inviting the first wife of Lord Shiva, and who's Sati, and Lord Shiva. Parvati. He did not invite, um, and so. Which is also Sati is also a form of Parvati, or rather the other way around. Parvati is also um, a form of Sati. But anyways, going forward quickly, so he wasn't invited, but Sati still went to Lord Daksha, much to the chagrin of Lord Shiva. And there, one of the performers, the priest presiding it was Bhaga, one of the sun gods. And so Lord Shiva became very angry because he was insulted. He came looking for Sati, and Lord Daksha was made a few insults, and that ired Shiva a lot. So he literally um, cut the nose of Bhaga. So say some Puranas that he basically blinded him, and hence the of course later he got his eyesight back and everything was bright again, and that was no problem at all. But hence Bhaga is my portion. How much am I, how much um, joint resources am I going to get once I enter into the alliance? That is the question between Purva Falguni and the other nakshatra, the next in line, which is Uttara Falguni. So Uttara Falguni and Purva Falguni form a kind of a pair. This is first of the pair, and so this is a very, very vital thing, because the pairs in the whole of the nakshatra schemes are very, very powerful, and they come together. So Purva Falguni is the former one, the red one. And why red? Let's see. Ah, because the one of the trees associated is the sacred tree, the flame of the forest, which is called palash in Sanskrit or Hindi. It's also called the parrot tree. It's also called the Bengal Kimshuka plant. But Palash is a very, very powerful tree. Extremely, what's the word? Extreme. Every part of the Palash tree is used for something or the other. It's also called the teak, the bastard teak. Well, I don't know why, but that is the name I was supplied with. Pea tree comes from the small deciduous tree. According to the RHS, it is one of the golden chain. And as you can see, the red, brilliant flowers are stunning. The Palash tree has been used in Ayurveda practices from times immemorial. Charak Samhita, Shushruta, Upanishads, they all refer to this Palash exhaustively. Palash tree is anti-inflammatory in nature. Like I said, people even make dyes with it, natural dyes, vegetable dyes, with no chemicals. So this is absolutely phenomenal. And it gets rid of swelling pain by steaming the flowers and applying it to the swollen body part. It is very effective in detoxing. Obviously, dried flowers, you can make tea with it. It's absolutely fantastic to flush out toxins. It's an aphrodisiac in nature. Purva Falguni is associated with marriage and procreation, so of course it has to have some kind of exotic, erotic, sort of look to it. So aphrodisiacal in nature. The seeds of palestry are more aphrodisiac in nature than the flowers. These seeds present in leguminous fruits of the tree and so on and so forth, they give you strength, vigor, and potency. So here again, there's loads of things: filarial, diabetic, antioxidant in nature, antidiarrheal. So it's essentially any of the stomach problems and intestinal issues. It is a fantastic remedy, absolutely phenomenal. The other remedy for stomach problems is the bale tree, which is the bilwa, which is the most favored of it, and which we will visit in Chitra Nakshatra, but another time, because we do not have time for this. The wood of the palash tree is used in ritual ceremonies, burning in an incense which purifies the air. So it is fantastic for, purifying the air. You can mix it up with like dried bay leaf and, just burn it on a charcoal and just kind of cleanse the whole house, and it changes the energy of the home. Okay, so we are running out of time, and we do not have Purva Falguni. This is the bay tree which you can plant in the UK, the equivalent of it, because Palash is not available. Sorry guys, there is loads, and we any if I mean I don't know.
You're gonna have to come back and do the rest, I guess.
Yeah,
We may have to have a
absolutely.
word with Wanda to maybe next term, or
Yeah.
at any other availability to kind of allow you to come and do another talk, because you've there's 20 7 8 nakshatras, and you've only gone through what, 11. So yeah, far more. And I'm not sure if anybody's here who has maybe a particular critical planet or ascendant maybe in their chart that is at one of the later ones that you didn't get to talk about. But I'm hoping that the people who attended got the gist of the talk, and
Yeah.
they can do more reading than you've given them.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, feel free to contact me. A lot of
yes.
people I can see here are from my beginners classes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Any questions so
If there are
far?
any quick questions and answers, you can unmute yourselves, guys. If there are any quick questions or comments before we finish for this evening. Anything? Everybody? Yeah. Namala, you wanted to say something? Your hand's raised.
Yes, please. If we could have more of Sonal to take us through the rest of the discussion, it would be really appreciated. I think we're really eager. We feel we're just getting into it now, and we really
Yeah.
want to get more of her. Thank you.
Yeah. No, definitely. I'm definitely with you. I'm in agreement with you, and it would be nice if she could have finished off the lot. But it's a lot of information. It's very loaded, and
Yeah.
So yeah,
Thank you,
definitely for
Nirmala.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll probably, I mean, if the lodge doesn't have slots, I mean, we can chat on the Telegram group and, do it in a few weeks' time or something like that, as an added thing. But yeah, it's like a whole course by itself, really, because it's so much the remedies, the key remedies come from the nakshatras. It's like tip of the iceberg, and it's pretty fascinating because you can even take your moon nakshatra and start counting that what which nakshatra is and what planets you have in those particular nakshatras, and they have a very significant definitive significations, and where you will encounter problems and how do you manage it, like Aslesha, like I said, it's a lethal one, Aslesha is like, yeah. So yeah, it's so much of it, I mean, you know uh yeah.
But is it fair to say, or is it possible that they could, because if they go back over even of the recordings, the first 9 nakshatras, the planets that rule them, uh, it continues again. So you get the first 9, and then you get the same planets again ruling the next 9, and then the next 9. So you have the same planets will rule
Yeah.
about 3
Yeah.
zodiac. So is it could it still work maybe if they were able to find so you've done the first 9, of course.
Yeah, but the deities
Are
Israel.
different. Okay, yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
These are very ancient deities I'm talking about. They are like thousands and thousands of years old.
Yeah.
And just doing the deities sadhana or practice, working with the deity of your moon nakshatra or your rising
Right.
sign
Yeah.
nakshatra is very powerful. And each
Yes.
deity is unique. They each have a story,
Mhm.
they are connected, but they are unique. There is, you
Yeah.
can't repeat them.
Yeah. No, I get what you
And
mean.
even the trees, you can't repeat them,
Yeah. I thought maybe they could still work with the trees, but no, obviously.
No,
it
the
is,
trees have very special significance,
yeah.
like very, very special. Like with Magha, the banyan tree is like, wow. And Magha and Aslesha both are associated with like the serpent energy of Rahu and Ketu, it's very, very strong energies of the serpents in both constellations. And if you see the trees, that's why you need such sacred tree, like the banyan tree and the people tree for sorry, not the people, I forget what, yeah, the I'm all confused now. Yeah, but the banyan tree you need for taking away the negativity of the serpent energy,
Right.
and even like stomach problems and stuff like that. Like we saw Palash was just of Purva Falguni, which is fantastic for intestinal bleedings and problems in the stomach, IBS and all that. So the bale, which is bale tree, which is a bilva tree, which is to do with the Chitra nakshatra, right? That is Lord Shiva's favorite tree. We always offer bilva leaves to Lord Shiva. And that is a fantastic healing. Even now, you can order on Amazon the Triphala, which is like a tonic health. They're just tablets or powder. You can order both. Or alternatively, if you want like a heavy healing on your stomach and IBS issues and bloating and all that, just order Bilva tablets on Amazon. Oh my God, they are fantastic. Heartburn to all kinds of stuff, it will cure in a heartbeat.
Wow.
And I kid you not, in a heartbeat. Like literally, you'll feel like, what happened? You know, just try it. You don't take my word for it. Just go for it. Just check it out.
What is the name, Sanal? Sorry, say it again. The name.
It's called Bilwa. Bilva. Bilwa.
Okay.
And they are basically bay leaves, dried and crushed, to make a powder. And they're all natural, and it is one of the key ingredients in the Triphala powder for Ayurveda remedies, along with Amla, which we saw in Bharani, right? Israel, remember Bharani? The Nakshjatra Bharani, the second one, the Amla was the main ingredient. The main tree. So, it's fascinating.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely a lot more to this. So you've definitely got to come back and do another one.
Or just have an extra lot session or something like that. Yeah, cool.
Definitely. No, great stuff. Great stuff.
So,
any more quick comments before we finish? Or no? Yeah. Could always have a little chit chat.
Yeah. So Nirmala, where are you from? In South Africa, you said? Whereabouts?
I'm